Welcome to 1,000 Words, a podcast that paints a picture about an artist's creative process. There's a lens to focus on the unique perspective of a specific artist, hopefully drawing insight into inspiration as we brush up on how imagination provides a groundwork for artistic exploration. We're excited to continue that journey with our guest today. Thank you so much for being with us, Jenny Frech.
Thank you.
And then Jenny spent a lot of time in her own imagination as a kid, like most artists and entrepreneurs, drawing and imagining worlds that don't exist. As an entrepreneur, her first business was a lemonade stand at age 6 or 7 on a dirt road that no one traveled down. But by the time she was in her teens, she had started oodles of short-lived businesses, including selling tiny plants, golf balls, and handmade stationery, babysitting for kids, dogs and horses, and a window washing business. As a Gen-Xer, her parents wanted her to find a long-term job with a company and get a retirement watch. She struggled with what she wanted to do as a grown-up and ended up with a degree in animal science. Even in college, she was checking out books called something like How to Start a Business from Home. Later, she went back for a teaching degree and taught off and on for 10 years. Looking back, she thinks she should have studied art and graphic design because she loves the whole process of creation and design. In 2012, she left teaching and worked at the University of Notre Dame as an education outreach coordinator at the Center for Sustainable Energy. Very cool. I always loved sustainable energy. She enjoyed the work and discovered some skills she didn't know she had. She liked networking, leadership, and coaching. Meanwhile, she made soap for the first time in 2012. Utter mess and a disaster. Out of the 3 batches, only 1 was usable. Christmas that year, friends suggested that they tried to make soap for Christmas presents. That time it worked and it was fun. She started experimenting and making all sorts of batches, trying out new recipes, scents, and color combos. Her husband suggested that she start selling at the farmer's market in Goshen. It was great timing. The former soap maker had just left and there was a space open. She sold $70 of a very ugly soap, her words, not mine, but with a great recipe that she developed at her first market. In the fall of 2013, she was able to quit her job at Notre Dame and go full-time in her business. In 2014, she opened her shop with her husband. Since then, she's moved 2 more times into bigger and bigger stores, an amazing support team. She says she's not a fine artist, but does consider herself a maker and an artist. She likes to explain soap making as part art, part baking, and part science. She spends a lot of time in artistic and creative endeavors, from designing soap, creating branded materials, designing labels, creating beautiful eye-catching store windows, and choosing merchandise assortments for the store. As an entrepreneur, she loves the creation of something from nothing. She starts with a vision of what could be, then she gathers up the ingredients to make it happen. Great team, influence from her customers, and the right mix of products. While the mix of products she makes today isn't what she envisioned 9 years ago, the business has taken on a life of its own. Sort of like raising kids. It's fun and exciting to watch them grow up into who they want to be. In this case, the community and customers have a pretty big say which way they grow. So we'll start with that part. And then could you tell us a little bit about what you brought today?
Yeah, so I brought our newest line. It's an affirmation line, and it feels the most like me. So when I started my business, I was just making soap for fun, and I didn't really know much about business. But after getting to know my customers and what they were really looking for, and thinking about what was meaningful to me, I came up with this affirmation line.
Cool.
So the affirmation line has soaps that say things like, I'm courageous, I am strong, my voice is valuable. And there was one moment at the store where someone came in to shop, and they were really quiet. They spent about an hour just touching everything, looking at everything. And when she brought her beautiful items to the front, she said that she had just found out that her good friend had breast cancer. And so she used the time in our store kind of as therapy to find some way to express to her friend how much she cared about her. And it felt like an honor to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to develop a line that could make people feel better about themselves or that they could gift to others in times like that.
A piece of your story that really jumped out on me is when you started at the farmer's market, the soap maker had just left. How much of being a maker is kind of serendipitous?
A lot of it. And the success of your business. And I have a business coach, and we were just talking about this a couple weeks ago, and that sometimes there's just a moment that changes the trajectory of what you're trying to do. And so, like, if you're an artist or something, it might just be you're at a market and the right person stops by and buys a piece of your artwork, or the right opportunity comes up. Yeah.
How does their craftsmanship, what artistic integrations do you have to use to make a soap that works in the right color, smell, right market?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So, well, of course, we've learned over the years what our best sellers are, and we're always experimenting with new things. But if we're developing a new scent, for instance, we have a scent of the month, and so that's something that changes out all the time. So we'll test a whole bunch of fragrances, find something that we haven't used before that we think our customers might like. Then we take that fragrance and we talk together as a group about, what does this remind you of?
Yeah.
And then we add color to that. And then with the naming too, that will often help inform what that soap is all about. So there's a lot of creativity that goes into it, and also some power of suggestion too with the colors. Like if you're looking at a purple soap, you're going to expect that it smells like lavender.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're looking at a soap that's orange, you're going to expect something that's a little more citrusy. So there's a lot of creativity that goes with that, and the labeling and how all of the packaging and stuff looks too.
One of the things that's really interesting about soap making is a scent is often very nostalgic.
Oh, for sure.
What smells do you enjoy, and what do they remind you of?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm not like most of my consumers. I love patchouli, which is either a love it or hate it kind of scent. There's no in between. I don't recommend people give it as gifts because it's very personal. But it just feels very earthy and grounded. But we'll get a lot of people when they're smelling soap, they'll say, oh, this reminds me of my grandma, or this reminds me of how my garden smells, or this reminds me of that favorite drink I get at my favorite bar or something. So there's definitely a lot of nostalgia and memories. Scent is one of the last senses to go.
Oh.
So, it's kind of interesting.
When you're working with something that is very utilitarian in its sense of, soap is just used for that, why is it so important to personalize it, to make it part of a craftsmanship and an artisan process?
Oh, another great question. So part of it for us, and I think one of the reasons that our business has taken off is that when people come into our store, they're attracted to the colors, they're attracted to the scents, and how things are presented. And then it's luxury that's affordable. Bath and body care products, when there are downturns in the economy, they actually do better because it's an affordable luxury that you have to buy anyway. You still need to buy soap. And so you can splurge a little bit and feel like you're treating yourself. So I think that's part of the reason that handcrafted soap is an exploding industry right now.
And then when you are talking about those little luxuries in life, why is self-care so important?
We do not treat ourselves kindly. And so, like with our affirmation line in particular, it's about reminding yourself that you're worthy, or reminding yourself that you're strong, or you're reminding yourself that you're beautiful once a day when you're in the shower, or every time you go to wash your hands. Our affirmation line, we even made some cute little window clings that you can put in your shower or on the mirror so that you're constantly reminding yourself of those messages. So self-care, we just need to do more of it.
Why do you think in today's society, when we're moving so quickly and everything, that it gives us all, we're working harder, yet we feel like we have more imposter syndrome?
I just wrote an email to my coach last night. And as I was writing the email, I was writing all these things about like, I probably shouldn't go to this event. I'm probably not good enough, or the people there are going to be smarter. And then I erased it all. And then I said, this is something I need to work on because I feel like I'm an imposter, like I'm not doing the things that I need to do. But it's so easy to feel that way, especially, I don't want to blame it all on social media, but we're able to see what other people are doing more easily than we used to be able to. And then we start comparing ourselves. And part of the thing that I have to remember is, and I tell people who are a couple years behind me, is that they're just farther along in the process.
Yeah.
And maybe their process moved faster for them, and maybe it moves slower for me or slower for the person I'm trying to encourage. But everybody's just on their own journey. And so you really can't compare yourself. But you can also look at it and see, that's possible.
Yeah.
And they were once where I was. They had to start somewhere, So if you can flip it, and the other way.
Make it a more positive and optimistic outlook.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I'll get there someday, or that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So comparison could be a killer of creativity, but it could be an encouraging, hey, maybe I should take this leap.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great way to see it. Absolutely. What do you particularly like as you've gone through this process to be able to build an affirmation line?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. So being able to go through a process, now you're able to, we'll make like 3 batches and 1 batch works. Now you're making lines of products. What is that like to be able to be this part of the journey where you're like, yes, this is an affirmation line?
Oh, that part is super fun. It's so creative. And this is something that I didn't even know was possible. Like as far as creativity and putting it all together. I love, I've learned more about branding and things along the way, and design. And I don't do my own design work, but I have a vision for what I want, and then I can communicate that to the designer. I want to do more things like this. So now I understand how the line can be put together, but also looking for holes in the market and then developing more products for that. Or we do some private manufacturing with other businesses. So we just had a client come to us and they had this really cool idea, and I did some mock-ups of boxes and how they could promote it. And we're going forward with it, and it's just so fun to create with this particular client makes a different type of product. And so they're really creative in their way, but they don't know my industry.
Yeah.
And so putting that together is just creative magic. I love it.
So for me, I am a flavor maximizer. If I go, I'm always throwing in when I'm cooking, I throw in I love this, I love this, I love this. And then it almost becomes a little overwhelming. How do you limit yourself in designing a particular scent?
Okay, so there are 2 ways we have to limit ourselves. One, when we're mixing the essential oils or fragrances or whatever we're using. So we'll mix a bunch and little testers, and we smell them all. Part of it is price. You have to, and cost, so you have to, determine, is that something that people will pay for? For instance, if I were to use rose essential oil in a soap, that's going to be a $250 a bar soap just because of the cost of rose oil.
Oh, wow.
So some of it is pricing. And I'm sure other artists too would have the same kinds of things. Like, okay, well, it might be really cool to use that medium or whatever, but is somebody really going to pay that? And then the other way that we have to limit ourselves now, especially as we're getting bigger and making bigger batches, is as we're trying new things, we test them small. So like our scent of the month is something that we can test. And then if people love it, we sell out, we can always add it or we can bring it in as a seasonal. But then we also have to look at our numbers and then we cut the things that aren't selling.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So those are the two ways that we limit. It's not just like in the design of the actual bar and overdoing it, but we don't want to have too many choices because too many choices, people can't make a decision then.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
It's like overload.
Yeah. And is there a product that you've made that you've cut that you were like, that was going to work? And then something you were like, I don't know if this is going to work. And then it just exploded?
Oh, yes. But I can't think of it right. We have one product that is such a good product and we just cannot get it off the ground. It's a spray that's like, you can use it on your body, linen, in the air, and we hardly sell any. It is such a good product, and that's really frustrating. But sometimes, so if I look at my data from like 3 years ago, something may not have sold very well. And now that we have more customers, now if we sometimes we'll reintroduce something to see if it takes this time.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you determine, how do you move forward with economies of scale when you're trying to build?
Yes, that is very difficult. So because we're a product-based business, we just have to make more of things. So I used to make soap in like little 2-pound batches when I first started, like a loaf of bread kind of size. And now we do 30 pounds of soap, which is 144 bars at a time in each batch. And then I don't really make much soap anymore. I help with some of the designing, but I have a production manager that helps me with that. We work with tons of artists in our store. Like we sell a lot of things. And I think some of the ways that some of the artists deal with that is like if they're a painter or something, okay, so they sell their paintings for $2,000 a piece or something, but then they have cards and prints and things like that they could sell and leverage the economies of scale that way, because not everybody can access $2,000 prints, but maybe they can buy a box of your cards or something. So there's lots of different ways that people can do that.
And then how do you communicate effectively when you're working in this collaborative process?
With the
production manager, with different artists, with different painters?
Yeah, I'm learning. As far as like the artists that we purchase from, most of them are set up for selling wholesale already. So we buy a lot of stationery and things like that. We do have a few artists that we sell on consignment, and that would be original work that we're selling on consignment. As far as like working with artists on my different lines that I have, that is so fun. Like, it's just fun to take my vision and then see what work they have. Yeah. And I just want to do more of that. It's just really fun. But not every, some artists are open to that kind of work, and then others want to do their own thing, and that's fine. I try to seek an artist out that's already doing work similar to what I'm envisioning, instead of trying to make somebody do something that is out of their wheelhouse.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think for, traditional forms of art, it's very solitary. They find a studio, they're just by themselves. Yours is very collaborative.
Yeah.
How do you kind of make that work with people who oftentimes can be very introverted or very solitary?
We did a collaboration with someone who had never done a box design before. Her name is Brooke Roshank. It was for our kids line. And I envisioned I wanted animals you could find in the Midwest. And so I gave her the list of animals and she did research on them. And then she came up with some sketches of what she was thinking would be cool on the boxes. And then we worked with the graphic designer as well. So we had the fine artist, we had the graphic designer. And the graphic designer gave us input on how to best do the painting. She was doing watercolors. And one of the things we found that we wouldn't have thought out of without the graphic designer was that each piece of the artwork should be separate. So like what's on the side of the box should be separate. What's on the front should be separate.
Yeah.
The background should be separate so that she could layer it in her graphic design software. And so working with both the graphic designer and the artist was awesome. It was so good. And we had a lot of fun on that project. So,
oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys get to work off ideas where it's like, well, this is what works in graphic design and this is what works in watercolor. And how do you guys mend those different, you know? Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah. And then being an entrepreneur, what has been one of the more difficult parts of the process and what is your favorite part of the process?
Well, difficult is probably always going to be cash flow. But my favorite part is the people I get to work with. I have an incredible team, and they each bring something unique to the business. Like, I really look at the whole business as like this sculpture. Like, we're building this thing out of a big lump of clay, and I make a little bit on the clay, do a little bit on the clay, and then my team does some things, and then the customers come in and they mold it a little bit, and they're creating something bigger than I ever could have imagined on my own. And that whole process is just super fun, and that's my favorite part, is working with my team and my customers.
Every once in a while, you get very lucky in something. But to find a team that you trust, that takes a skill set in itself. How do you find the right team members that fit with you?
I've done a few things that I think have helped. One, I hire teachers. I have 4 teachers on staff, including myself, former teachers. I have them take the StrengthsFinder, the Gallup StrengthsFinder test, so I can see where their skills lie. When I was developing the team, I was just looking for good people. I wasn't necessarily looking for particular skills, and we've just learned along the way.
Yeah.
And then making sure that we have a culture where people are not afraid to ask questions. And people are not afraid to fail. I never get mad when they mess up. I'm just like, you're never going to do that one again.
Yeah.
So, and they really trust each other. It's like a snark-free zone. It's really lovely to go to work every day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then why teachers?
Because they can do anything. Like, they know how to plan things. They know how to figure things out. They know how to work independently. They know how to work as a team. They've been a really good fit for us.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then what is your favorite part of the process? Because you said you're an artist, baking, what's your favorite part of the process?
Of soap making?
Yeah.
Well, my favorite part, especially in the beginning, and I still get to do it some, is developing new recipes. We came up with some good recipes early on, so I didn't have to fudge much. But now that we're getting some new clients on, we're developing recipes just for them. So that's really fun, and testing them out, and then figuring out new scents and how the designs are. And I'm having a lot of fun with the design work, too, on the packaging, and trying to figure out what direction to go on that, too, has been really fun.
How did you know when the time was right to move away and let the team start handling the soap making part and you to handle a different part?
That is another great question. That goes in with the scale, because I knew that in order to be profitable, I needed to scale at least some. I don't want to be ginormous as a business, but I needed to be able to delegate. Otherwise, I became the roadblock in everything, in email messages and customer service, because I didn't have things delegated and I didn't have like a standard operating procedure for things. And in order to grow and in order to free myself up for the more creative parts of it, I had to be able to delegate to others. And so during COVID is actually when we really, really started getting a good handle on our standard operating procedures, like how do you do shipping? How do you respond to emails? Because we were working one at a time at the shop. And that was kind of the catalyst, and that's the thing that got us through COVID too, as a business. So, I don't want to be the bottleneck for everything. I don't need to hear every customer service thing. My team is totally equipped to do that, but I needed to show them how in the, the procedure and how to do that.
While others very much struggled during COVID, you're saying you kind of thrived during that time. How did you kind of make the pandemic work for you?
Yeah, so I thought we were going to have to close. We were running numbers like in April of what month we were closing, not if, like how long can we try to tread water? And what worked for us is that we got our standard operating procedures going, not finished or anything, but got something going. And instead of one challenge, like usually every year we're like, oh, we'll figure one thing out. Like we'll figure out our website or we'll figure out shipping. And in like 8 weeks, we figured out how to ship. We figured out how to get stuff on our website. Like we did a lot of work. And instead of looking at it like this can't be done or sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves, we're like, okay, this is the obstacle. We're going to figure out how to get across this obstacle. Mask policies, we're really strict about that. And we ended up doing a lot of donations and stuff in the community, donations to nurses and of masks and things like that too. So I think that helped us.
Nice. Starting from a lemonade stand at 6 or 7 to now owning a business that keeps getting bigger spaces, what has been some of the tools that you've used even in those early entrepreneurial things that you're able to use now?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this on the way here. So I think the biggest thing is prospecting and looking for opportunities. On my way over, I had 2 ideas for businesses I won't start, but like holes, like gaps in what is being sold. And my former landlord, who is 92 years old, and he is also an artist, he sold antiques for years, and he helped revitalize, his name is Dave Pottinger. He helped revitalize Goshen and renovate buildings and stuff. And he's a fine artist. He makes beautiful paintings. He and I were chatting one day because I really admire what he's done for the community, and he helped me out as I was starting out. He said that being an entrepreneur is like being at one of those duck hunt things at the fair where the ducks are going by, and and they're opportunities. So all these opportunities are going by, and you have to figure out which opportunity to pick and run with. And so when I was a kid, it was my mom had a plant that had a bunch of little babies, those little aloe plant babies. Yeah. So I was like, I could sell those. That was my prospecting opportunity. Now it's like the lady coming into the store and looking for something for her friend who had cancer, noticing that as an opportunity that I can pluck and try out has probably been the most important tool I've learned all along, but I didn't have a word for it.
Interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when you're finding, earlier you said, some of the biggest challenges, cash flow issues. Mm-hmm. When you're having those cash flow constantly as an issue, how do you still stay innovative? How do you still do R&D? How do you still kind of move forward without that being debilitating?
Mm-hmm. So I've set up some systems. Anybody who starts any kind of business, whether it's art or anything, should read Profit First about paying yourself a little something, even if it's like $50 a week or something, as you're growing your business, to start getting used to paying yourself and also putting money aside. So like Christmas is our big time. So every month I put aside money into a Christmas account to buy stock for Christmas. We also, I know for my industry that 5% is what you should spend on R&D. And so, we can kind of set that money aside. Our biggest cash flow thing right now is payroll. I have great people and I want them all. So my payroll is a little bit higher, but all in all, it's pretty good.
And then how do you deal with market volatility?
For us, we've only seen growth.
Oh.
So the only volatile part was during COVID.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And then what about now with like not just market volatility, but like inflation or any of those things? How do you deal with those factors?
Well, we are raising prices. We haven't done a price increase on our soaps recently. But as an artist or maker, whatever, you do have to raise your prices. And you have to price effectively from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like the number one thing I would say to makers or artists just starting out is make sure that you're not underpricing. Especially if you're going to try to get your work into a gallery or into a store or something, because a gallery is going to expect 30 to 50%. A store is going to expect 50% if you're selling it to them. So make sure you're pricing appropriately from the get-go so you don't have to go back and tell those bargain hunter people that you're increasing your prices.
I think a lot of times we undercut passion, or we undercut price because of passion.
Mm-hmm.
So when we find something that we enjoy, I think a lot of times people are like, okay, well, I just need my custom materials to get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a business. But I think that becomes a hobby artist.
For sure.
Whereas actually becoming a business owner is marketing in those pieces.
Correct.
What was the hardest part to factor in?
When I was first starting, the understanding how, for me, as a product maker, it was understanding what wholesale was about. And like, what you mean? I have to give them my product at 50% off? I can't do that. Yeah. Well, that means my pricing wasn't right.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to go back and refigure my pricing. So.
And then when people are thinking about that, so what is the difference between wholesale and retail in terms of the advantages of why you would sell something at 50% off versus trying to sell it yourself?
Yeah. So the wholesale, it lets you sell in volume. So once they buy it wholesale, it's theirs. If they want to put it on sale, they can put it on sale. They can display it however they want. If you are selling retail, you're in charge of selling it. You're in charge of displaying it. You're in charge of going to all the craft sales. Or opening your own brick and mortar. Something like a store or a gallery is going to have, hopefully, will have more visibility maybe than you would have on your own. We have, I don't know, probably 100 different makers in our store that we buy wholesale from. And so people can come and shop all these different people all at once versus maybe finding you on your random website somewhere. So those are some advantages. Consignment can be tricky. It kind of depends on what you're selling. Personally, I don't sell consignment for my items because they're a low-cost item. If I was doing paintings or something, I probably would in a gallery. I call it that difference between wholesale and retail. I call that the babysitting fee, because somebody has to show the work and sell the work and stuff. And so even though, okay, I'm selling this bar of soap for $8 and I sell it wholesale for $4, I'm only making $2 a bar when I sell it, and the store is going to make $4 a bar, but they also had to sell it, and they had to display it, and they had to pay the rent, and they had to pay their people. So it is worth it in order to get a bigger market.
And then what is the inspiration behind the name, the Soapy Gnome?
Oh, good question. So before I started my business, I used to garden a lot. Okay. Now that I have a business, I don't have time to garden. But I also wanted something that was kind of quirky because I don't feel like I fit in places, and a gnome, I don't know. It's just worked out really great. It's a very memorable vision to picture in your head. Once people say Soapy Gnome, they remember it.
A lot of times I think we get very also debilitated on the idea of joining a market that seems so big. So when you're thinking about the soap market,
it's huge.
How are you trying to make headway into that market? Yeah.
Well, for body soap, it's only like 2 to 5% of Americans use handcrafted soap. So there's a lot of room for growth there, and it is growing crazy. Like, people have heard of Dr. Squatch and all these other bigger brands and stuff. So there's room there. And I have lots of friends that are soap makers, and we talk business because we're not in the same niche. Like, one of my best soap making friends has an adventure brand, and it's all about camping and and going and hiking and things. And that's not me. So we're not competing because we're selling to different people. I had another friend that sold soap in Idaho, and her business was called the Idaho Soap Company. Like, we're not competing. I'm here in Indiana. So there is plenty of room for everybody. But it's good you should never copy what other people are doing. You should do something that is authentic to you. Like, the more authentic to you, your product, whatever it is, the more your customers are going to resonate with that. And people don't buy your product. They buy the trust, the know, like, trust. So if they know, like, and trust you, then they're going to buy from you.
And then what is your authentic self?
I want to show people empathy and love. Like, whoever comes into my store, I want them to feel it. I don't even want to, I could tell them that, but I want them to feel it when they come into the store. And it's all about how we make people feel.
How do you build that environment?
Well, I hire people who are empathetic and really, really great with people. Also, like the products that we carry. So we do have like some pop culture trendy things in the store, but you won't find swear words, and you won't find birthday cards that say, "You're over the hill and ready for the grave." You won't see that kind of stuff because we want to be building people up. There's so much negativity out there. And while I might, send a card like that to my brother or something, I don't want to contribute negativity into the world. So I just want positive things in my store, so that's what you're feeling when you're in there.
How did you find your creative niche? Niche?
Yeah,
I've never known how to say the word.
I know, and then I always feel dumb. I think it's just like trial and error and recognizing that's a great question. I've done a lot of like branding work and a lot of like digging deep into the deeper and deeper why. So for a while, I really felt like my business was all about cozy. And it is. Like, that's our brand word. Actually, that was a good answer to your last question. Our brand word for the store is cozy. So we look for items that are cozy. Candles, teas, fuzzy socks, blankets, stuff like that. So for the longest time, I thought, that's it. That's my why. But as I started digging deeper, I was like, I like cozy because it makes me feel good. But what I really want for everybody is not just the cozy. I want you to feel good in your own skin. Like, I want you to feel like you're valuable and worthy while you're drinking your cozy tea.
And then working at University of Notre Dame, a very prestigious school in our area, great, pay, great salary, great, benefits, good place to work. What wasn't that fulfilling where being an entrepreneur, you were like, I got to get back to that?
Well, the thing about that job, when I started, they didn't have really a job description. It was just called Education Outreach Coordinator. And when I asked for more specifics, they said, just do outreach and coordinate education. And so I was able to really kind of prospect. So I went out there and I met with a lot of community leaders with energy. I met with other schools to see what their needs were. And then I was able to meet with some of the faculty to see what they really wanted to do as far as their outreach. And this was 10 years ago. So it's a little fuzzy, but I just started realizing that I was capable of a lot more than I had given myself credit for. In particular, with the networking and listening and taking what people were saying and helping them translate it into something that worked for them. So I loved that part. I was ready for a new challenge when this came up and with the soap thing was taking off, and I really wanted to give it a shot. And my boss wanted me to stay, and I was like, I just really want to try this. And so that's what I did.
Nice. Mm-hmm. One of the things I noticed when I moved to the Midwest is everybody here is built on being humble.
Mm.
How do you stay humble but act courageously in trying to build a brand, an idea, a product?
I think that's hard. It's actually really hard for me because, I'm Midwest nice and I'm not supposed to be aggressive. And so sometimes there are probably opportunities I left on the table because I was being too humble or I was being too Midwest nice instead of saying this is what I really want. In more recent years, I've gotten to the point where it's more like this is business. And if I need something, I need to ask for it. Or I need to say, no, I don't want to do that thing. And I'm just more direct about it. But I'm still learning because it's pretty ingrained.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you limit opportunities to achieve your goals? When you say that there's something that's out there where you're like, no, that's not for me. I don't want to go out 7 hours to, a possible small craft show when I could make more doing this. How do you limit opportunities to grow your goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I recently had an opportunity to take on some contract manufacturing that would have been okay, but it also would have caused us a lot of stress. And so I was like, well, it was just an opportunity we didn't take. Like after I explored like the financial and like what it would mean to my staff and things, we just didn't take it. Sometimes customers will ask us to make something, and this happens a lot to artists and stuff. Like, can you do a picture of my dog, or can you? And if it's not something that brings you joy, or it's not something that's in your wheelhouse, and you're like, oh, I don't know, you can say no. Like, hey, that's not in my wheelhouse. And if you know somebody, you can send them that way. Oh, here's an example. I had somebody who wanted to do like what I thought was private label, and then her requests kept getting like crazier and crazier. And so I was like, I do not want to deal with this person. And so I asked on my soap making forums, like, who does anybody want to take on this customer? And there were lots of people that did. So I sent them that way too.
How do you cut the cord when your motion is already in progress? Do you know a good time where you're like, this isn't working for me?
I haven't had enough. I've had just a few instances. I think it would just be on a case-by-case basis.
Case-by-case basis. Okay.
Yeah. Depending on the situation.
And then how do you balance ambition with peace of mind?
Oh, that's a great question too. So I have like things that are really important in my business. So probably the number one thing for me is that I want to be a good member of my community. So my bread and butter right now is the retail. We sell online, we do wholesale, we do all this other stuff, but retail is what helped us grow our business. So I want to be a good community member. So we give back things with some of our sales, do some donations, help promote things like when teaching stuff was going cuckoo bananas here. We did support teachers. So that being a good member of the community, I want to be a fun place to work that pays decent wages. I mean, I'm not where I want to be on wages, but we're getting there. And I want to be profitable. I don't want to, it's not a hobby. I want to, I want to make some money. So the integrity part, and we want our customers to feel good, like feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
And so we do, when we're making decisions, we make sure that it fits within our set of values.
Why is the Goshen community so important to you?
I moved here 13, 14 years ago, and I've lived in a lot of places, and it's my favorite place. It is a great place to start a business because they're is so much support for local. It used to be that the rents were pretty inexpensive. Now things are going up, but they're going up everywhere. And just the support, like during COVID, the support I got from my customers, and we have just so many loyal people. Having a consumable like soap is a little bit different than selling artwork, unless you're selling stationery or something. In that we get to see our customers every 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So we really, really get to know them and their families. And at this point, we're watching kids grow up or they start coming to working for us. So it's my home base.
Yeah. Would you ever see yourself expanding to another brick and mortar somewhere else?
I'm always prospecting. So maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any firm plans, but it's always running around in my brain.
What are some of the ideas on the horizon?
We are really trying to grow our wholesale right now. We're really trying to grow our contract manufacturing, so making soap for another brand, and then they brand it as themselves. And then growing our online as well. Like I said, like 2 to 5% of the population uses soap, so there's so much growth potential.
Yeah.
It's just getting people to our website. So, yeah.
And then, like you said, it's only 2 to 5%. How do you build awareness to the product even existing?
Some of the bigger brands are helping us, like Dr. Squatch and stuff. Like we've had some people whose husbands use Dr. Squatch, and then they see us and they try us, and then they're our customer now. So,
There you go.
So that's helpful.
Yeah. So do you kind of piggyback off? Is there consumer trends then that you kind of piggyback off of?
Somewhat. I mean, I'm always watching what other brands are doing. I buy soap from other companies to see what they're doing and what the quality of their product is. I like to look at trends in other industries to see what they're doing.
Oh.
So, like, for a while, we were really looking at, like, what are people doing in garden centers? Like, what are those brands doing? Because we're Soapy Gnome, and it's kind of gardeny and very cottagey kind of thing. So kind of watching that. And when you look at other industries, then you can create something that didn't exist in your industry. So that's really fun.
When you look at a lot of like big corporations, nobody goes to Coca-Cola and is like, you know what you can do?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do that with small businesses.
All the time.
What is that like, and how do you kind of do you enjoy that process? Do you not like that process?
It was particularly bad when we did craft shows and stuff, or they come up to us and then you get this person that tells you for an hour about this weird ingredient that you should use or something. But at this point, we just like write it. Like my staff will write it down and bring it to me. And sometimes they are good ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll incorporate them. Or if we hear the same idea over and over and over again, then we'll incorporate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, people want to tell you what to do. I've got that a lot at the very beginning. And now I get a little less, I think. I don't know. Maybe my staff is getting it.
Staff's getting it. And they just they're like, listen, somebody said this so many times, but we know it's not a good idea. Yeah. But you are open to that collaborative process, but like you less have to deal with it?
Yeah. Yeah. I would prefer the collaborative process working with other businesses and artists versus like one random person off
on the street.
And usually it's somebody who has never bought anything from you or won't, or they'll be like, if you made XYZ, then I will buy your stuff. Oh.
Well, then this product might not be the right thing for you.
You might want to find somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that with South Bend Civic Theater, when they implemented right at the end, you have to either get a test or you have to wear a mask. All these people came up and they're like, well, I'm never going to go there again. And then they looked in their database and they're like, you've never gone here before. So is it easier for people to have an opinion than have a solution?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And like during COVID for us, our customer base, we have tons of teachers, tons of nurses, tons. And so when COVID happened, we're like, you have to wear a mask to come in. Like you can't if you don't. And so there were people that were mad about it, but they weren't like our customers that come see us every couple weeks. So while I don't want to say their opinion didn't matter, in this case, I really wanted to protect the people who wanted to be protected. Mm-hmm. So that's why we made that choice. And those choices are hard. It is not easy to have to make those kind of decisions.
And then when you are making decisions to think about your customer base and think about your employees, how important is community support, especially for a small business in its infancy stage?
It's everything, I think. Yeah, it's super important. I don't have a good story to go with it. It just is really important. And I think it's also, I guess I would say, add to that it's important that you're getting support from the community, but it's also important as the business or artist or whatever to express your appreciation for their support in whatever way that is. You might not, the other thing you're going to get all the time is like donation requests. Like they come in all the time and you can't possibly donate to everything, but you want to be a part of the community. So this is a little off track, but especially when you're starting out, if there's something that you really care about, making sure that is something that you donate to, or that you reserve something for the organization or organizations that you care about, so that you can politely decline the other requests, because sometimes it's just unreasonable. I got really off track with that, but
no.
It's an important part of being a part of the community is giving back, but you can't give to every single thing. It's just not sustainable. So choose one or two things that you care about. Like we choose, I don't know, half a dozen different organizations, and we give $500 or more to those organizations rather than one little gift basket for a auction here and there, because our $500 is going to go farther than
absolutely.
A $20 gift basket. So for an artist, you might decide like, okay, I'm going to paint this painting and I'm going to donate it to the the funds to the Humane Society. Or I have this line of cards and I'm going to donate 10% to this cause I care about or something. So anyway.
No, that makes a lot of sense. My parents always tell me about, they're like, in life, you're going to have a lot of hard edges, but you'll always have a soft corner. And so there's something that so for my dad, it's always like young education. So like whenever he gets told about that, he's like, oh, there's like a kid that's not getting, okay, that's the one thing. Or like for my mom, it's like, oh, this like issue happened, like women's rights in India. Like if an organization comes to her for that, she's like, yes, here's my checkbook. Like, what do you guys need? Versus every single person coming up to you and you're not really making as much of a difference that way either. I think you have some more self-assuredness when you're like, oh, I made a difference today. Yeah. Versus I kind of helped out, or I passed the buck. Literally passing a buck and just being like, all right, well, let me get out of here.
And then as you develop a platform, you can also help that organization. So like last year or recently, we did some things for teachers or we just did a teddy bear drive. And like you can help build awareness using your platform and your social media and your emails and things like that too for a few organizations rather than like the 20 requests we get a week. It just makes a bigger difference for everybody.
One of the big things I see in the Midwest for a village or a town to make it into becoming a city is a lot of big box stores getting brought in. How do we as a community really support our community by helping out small businesses, especially in their infancy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of like in the shop local movement, sometimes you'll hear things about, or like on TikTok now, there's like, I'm a maker, you need to pay me more money for this thing. Well, you need to make it worth their while. And in the shop local thing, some of it is about guilting you into spending the money. But there are tons of good reasons to shop locally versus the big box store. And the biggest reason is you're going to get better service. You're going to get someone who starts to know you and your family and what you want and what you need. They're going to be more knowledgeable. Like in Goshen, we have Woldriff Shoe Store, which you go in there, they still measure your feet. They bring things out. They're knowledgeable about shoe fit. If you go to Meyer or something to pick up some shoes, there's nobody there to help you pick out your shoes. You don't know if you picked a good shoe or not. And you might pay a little bit more. Some of the products in our store, like people think it might be more expensive, but we're actually priced lower than some of the others, or at least the same price. Not everything is more expensive. So it's not always more expensive. You'll get better service. And then that money does stay local. You know, I'm paying my employees. They're all local. They're buying stuff locally. And So
I think that's a great point about it. A lot of times people are like, I just deserve more because I'm here. And it's like, no, you got to make it, because the consumer's like, well, I only have so much cash, that I can spend. How do I make it worth it for me? Financial sense as well. Yeah.
Oh, and the other piece of that too is that the local businesses are giving back. You know, they're donating to different causes or whatever. We're doing a soap for the 4-H fair. We're going to the fair as a vendor, and then we have a couple of soaps that we're going to do that will give back a percentage. So, you know, the small businesses are giving to your baseball teams and things like that, whereas Meyer's probably not. So,
as a creative, as an entrepreneur, what do you think? Do you think anyone can be an entrepreneur, and what defines an entrepreneur in your eyes?
I don't think everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Probably not everybody should. But I think most people could be a small business owner in not having employees.
And then what's integral to the work of a maker?
That's a very big question. What do you mean by, like, as far as, I don't know, can you rephrase that?
Yeah, what is the essence of, or the most necessary traits to be a maker?
As far as having it as a business, is looking at it as a business that you get to use your hands instead of sitting behind a computer all day. But there will be computer stuff. So looking at through the lens of what is a good business decision versus what's just fun to make. And not everything that you make can be sold as a profit. Some of it will just have to be for fun.
What's your advice to anybody who's up and coming, trying to get into being a maker, being an artist, or being an entrepreneur?
Do some self-evaluation on what you want your business to look like. If the big business stuff scares you and having employees scares you, then you probably don't want a big, giant business. If you like to make your stuff and you don't like to talk to people and you don't like any of the business stuff, then you might need to pair up with somebody who does like the business stuff to help you make it work. And find somebody to coach you and mentor you. That's a huge one. I wish I had done that sooner. Like, I did all the free stuff online that you can possibly do, but I didn't hire my first coach until a couple years ago. So if you can find anybody who's farther advanced than you, then that's helpful.
Perfect. And under that advice, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it, Jenny. Thank you for listening to 1,000 Words. I'd like to thank our guest, Jenny Frech, for her time, effort, and insight. This episode was recorded at Wolf Den Studios in South Bend. Our audio engineer is Dustin Taberski. We hope you enjoyed this journey of inspiration, imagination, and exploration. I'm Ronnie Das, reminding you to have fun, be creative, and enjoy a wonderful day.